When I was 13, I was groomed. It's something that's been very close to me for a long time, and I haven't really felt comfortable talking about it or felt safe in myself when discussing it, especially because I dealt with so much hate when I released a video talking about it. But nothing has stressed me as much as when my actual groomer started releasing videos claiming I was lying about everything I'd presented against them. So that's when I started doing some digging. I looked through some of their old content, and I found some highlights in a particular video which they say wasn't an apology, but I mean, you can take it how you want, where they admit to everything they did to me, basically. They don't say it in words that can be 100% recognized as them admitting to the grooming part, but they admit to wrongdoing. Here are those clips.
I wish I had friends who wanted to do it, but it's my own fault they're gone. There, when I had him as a friend, there was a guy named HarleyTBS. I'll paint the people in Twitter with this because it's about them. So I don't want to paint them because I know it might start chaos, but I feel bad for not saying, oh, I mentioned you in the video, sorry, to rehash any memory. There's just been quite a bit that's happened. And, Harley, I don't mean anything by this. Like, you're fine. You have every right to feel however you feel, man. I wish you the best for whatever you do. But I have to add this in so it makes sense. You were one of the trusted friends. Back then, I was very stupid, knew nothing about the world. You were a good friend. Used your trust too much. Yeah. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Not better. I wish I could turn back time and undo a lot of what I did. Because my career would be a lot better. I would have all my friends that wanted to help me still around. I just wish things could be different. I could go back to my old self, tell him not to do certain things, to avoid certain people that caused certain things.
I feel like these clips alone represent what happened to an extent. I just feel like he doesn't name it directly, and instead he just skirts around it while saying he wants to make me see this by tagging me. It's kind of like an indirect apology for what he did to me. But I decided after seeing this that I was going to confront him in DMs because I was sick of seeing videos claiming I was lying about being groomed. So I added him, and the conversation proceeded as follows. Firstly, I brought up the coercion he'd made on me to try and get me to move into where he lives for sexual reasons, and he continued to make excuses, saying it was before he offered me money and such. He admitted to asking for nudes from me and paying money to get them. And just before anybody questions the age gap, here's proof of him admitting it was a 3-year age gap, with me either being 12 and him being 15, or me being 13 and him being 16. I'm almost 100% it was 13 and 16, but take that as you will, because the relationship continued for like a year anyway, so either way it would have been like a year of this. And to lay down how the payment thing worked, he would pay me on a specific day, and at the start he just gave me the money, and then he said he wouldn't anymore. He'd basically got me to a point where I was kind of relying on that money, and then he said he wouldn't give it anymore. So being the idiot I was, I asked what he wanted, and he replied by asking for explicit images. This conversation continued by me mentioning the fact he knew I needed the money, and he exploited that vulnerability to get explicit photos of me by saying that was the only way he would give me the money, after he'd already got me basically hooked to it. And after I brought this up in the conversation, he provides a screenshot of me in the past when I was like 13 saying the M-word soft A in conversations when referring to him, a white person. This is something I've admitted to doing before. It's something I'm not proud of. I was just an idiot, didn't know what the word meant, and I would use it as a way of referring to people that I considered friends. It was just generally a stupid thing for me to do. But then he calls this racist, and he says, do you really want to be the one to bring up the past we agreed was bullshit, trying to blackmail me into silence by threatening me of a past mistake? This was obviously manipulatory, but then we go over to the conversation we had in the group chat because he added me to a group chat because he was going out and he has 2 different Discord accounts. When in the group chat, I brought up the definition of grooming, and then I said that he realizes that what he did fell under the definitions of grooming, to which he said it was in my point of view, and I said no, under the law, and then he victim blamed me and said under the law, you'd be told you were at fault for not saying no to me when you weren't forced, which is the wrong way to look at this because I was manipulated and he took advantage of a vulnerability. The conversation continued for a bit and he said he's been put through more than me, which is his personal experience. If he's struggled in his own situations, I understand, that sucks. I just told him, my groomer, that I just wanted to know my story time was true, to have good faith when I made that video. And then in response he admitted to unintentionally grooming me. Now this is something that I tried to bring up earlier in the conversation because he kept saying that he didn't mean to groom me or something of the like. So I asked him to at least acknowledge that he did, in that case, unintentionally groom me, which I personally would have disagreed with, but obviously it's very hard to get someone to admit to all of this, so I'd take that as a good enough admission as I'm gonna get. My story time was never a lie, and anyone saying my story time was a lie is lying. The story I told in my video was true. I may have got the age off. I thought they were 17, but they were 16, but everything else shared in that video was true, and I was groomed, unintentionally or not. So yeah, I just hope in the future people won't try and blame the victim in similar situations to my own. I don't think anyone's gonna do it anymore because I've provided enough evidence to prove I was never lying. I don't know why anybody thought it was their place to question my experience being groomed. There was no reason to believe my story was false, but anyone that did so has forced me to speak to my groomer again, so thank you, really appreciate you. Please never tell me how to handle these situations in the future. I hope more victims can come out without having to feel like they need to explain themselves or present all the evidence even when they're keeping their groomer anonymous. Your story is valid and you should be able to come out with it without having fear of being harassed. Thanks for watching. Peace.